There are some who argue against the existence of ghosts, perhaps due to fear of supernatural entities, or a belief that such stories are mere fabrications created for entertainment purposes. However, for me, personal experiences have shaped my belief in the paranormal. If I had not witnessed what I have, I may have also been skeptical of their existence. My first encounter with a poltergeist occurred when I was 8 years old. Late at night, I was awakened by the sound of chairs being dragged across the dining room's tile floor. As I realized that I was not dreaming, I became terrified. Suddenly, the chairs ceased moving, and I heard a woman's voice from the kitchen, adjacent to the dining room. Although I cannot recall all that she said, I distinctly remember her calling my name repeatedly. I was too scared to move until the paralysis wore off, and then I ran as fast as I could to my mother's bedroom, tripping over a laundry basket on the way. I did not want to be sent back to my room, but my mother comforted me, assuring me it was only a nightmare. However, I couldn't fall asleep that night, and I found myself staring at the ceiling for comfort, too scared to investigate the kitchen or dining room until the morning. The next day, when I recounted what had happened to everyone, they all laughed at me, including my older brother and father, who created a running joke about the ghost chair, the empty seat at the dinner table that they claimed belonged to a phantom. They even playfully demanded that my mother prepare a plate of food for the ghost. I couldn't help but think that one day, they would see the truth. That day came sooner than expected for my siblings and me. A few years later, during a stormy evening, my brother was left in charge of us while our parents were out. Despite being old enough to babysit, he was too immature to properly care for us, and instead, he used to tease us about ghosts while trying to convince us that our house was haunted. On this particular night, he opted to tell us scary stories instead, which, combined with the thunder and lightning, terrified us. He eventually tried to comfort us by insisting that ghosts were not real, saying the words that would come back to haunt him. "There is no such thing as ghosts. If there were, they would show us a sign." Suddenly, all the lights went out, as if in response to his challenge. They came back on a few seconds later, but my brother never joked about ghosts again. As a child, an incident that may not have been particularly frightening for an adult seemed like a horror movie to me. But my next experience was perhaps the most terrifying. I was around 18 or 19 years old and had gone for a drive with my sister to Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. It was sunset, and we decided to take a drive around the area to admire the beautiful mansions before heading back home. We stumbled upon an empty lot, which was unusual as the other lots in the area were filled with massive homes. This lot was sizable and located near the park, so it was peculiar to see it lying vacant. My sister suggested we pull over on the curb and explore the lot. As we walked through the lot, we suddenly felt a chilling cold, and the sky turned gray in an instant. My sister became anxious and insisted we leave immediately, sensing that something bad might happen to us if we stayed there. She thought someone might be living there, and I hesitantly agreed to leave with her, feeling uncertain about staying any longer. An inexplicable fear was grabbing me from within, causing a cold sensation of horror to envelop me, even though there was no apparent threat. The darkness only intensified my feeling of being alone and vulnerable. As we hurried back to the car, I couldn't help but feel relieved that I wasn't alone in that empty lot. It was a dark and stormy night as we drove through the deserted subdivision, searching for our next fix of drool-worthy mansions. As we were about to call it a night, we stumbled upon the vacant lot we had seen earlier. I parked the car, and we both stared in awe at the sight of it, shrouded in darkness. Suddenly, we noticed lights from another home on the opposite side of the canal, glowing through the trees. As we gazed at the lights, my sister noticed something strange. "Look, you can see through those people's windows over there," she said, pointing. We both looked, and that's when we saw it, a silhouette of a man or creature standing just 20 or 30 feet away from our car. The figure was staring at us with an evil gaze, but what was truly terrifying was that it had no face. It was completely transparent. "Do you see what I see?" my sister whispered, her voice trembling. I nodded silently, frozen in fear. Suddenly, the figure started to move towards us, and we both screamed in terror. I hit the accelerator and peeled out of there as fast as I could, the sound of the engine roaring in our ears as we left the shadowy figure behind. We were shaken and terrified, but we tried to laugh it off on our way back home. But deep down, we both knew that what we had seen was not of this world, and that the figure we saw that night was something far more sinister than we could ever imagine. I had never truly felt threatened by ghosts before. They would typically just make their presence known and then disappear. But this one was different. He made it clear that he did not want us there. It was as though he was trying to keep unwanted guests away from his territory. After all, it was the only vacant lot in the entire neighborhood. My only other experience with a ghost occurred about 2 years ago. It was late night, and I was sitting in my driveway, trying to contact my spirit guide, whom I call an angel. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a luminous apparition of a fair-skinned woman with long, wavy blonde hair, floating about 3 feet above the ground. She was wearing a soft yellow and white Renaissance-like gown, and some sort of hat or veil. We made eye contact, and in an instant, she vanished before my eyes. Initially, I assumed that I had seen my spirit guide, but something didn't feel right. I didn't have that comforting feeling that I usually felt when I communicated with her. Besides, the woman I saw didn't match the image of an angel that I had in my mind. I imagined my spirit guide would appear to me as a ball of energy, not a human-like figure. As I pondered what had just happened, I realized that I had just seen a ghost. The encounter left me feeling unsettled and made me question the existence of spirits and the afterlife. If ghosts could appear in such a vivid and tangible form, what else was out there in the world beyond what we could see with our own eyes? It was a chilling realization that still haunts me to this day. As a firm believer in ghosts and the afterlife, I have always had a theory that the spirits of deceased individuals get stuck in a parallel dimension between Earth and the afterlife. These lost souls are those who refuse to accept their death or have unresolved issues they are clinging to. Some may remain trapped in this realm for centuries, while others may only be there for a few weeks. It is not uncommon for them to linger around before finally crossing over to the other side. Encountering a lost soul can be a frightening experience, but it is important to remember that they cannot physically harm you. Most are just lost and confused, seeking guidance and confirmation of their death. If you ever find yourself face to face with a ghost, it is essential to tell them that they have passed on and encourage them to trust in the afterlife. During a ghostly encounter, many people report feeling an eerie and cold presence. But I believe that the feelings we experience when encountering a ghost are not because they are dangerous or evil, but because we sympathize with their pain. The thought of being trapped in a parallel dimension between life and death is a horrifying prospect, and it's no wonder that their presence can be overwhelming. But what if a lost soul is not seeking guidance, but something more sinister? What if they refuse to accept their death and want to drag you down with them into the abyss? The thought of being trapped in a ghostly realm for eternity is enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. So, if you ever encounter a lost soul, remember to approach them with caution and offer them the guidance they need to find their way home. But be warned, not all ghosts are friendly, and some may be beyond help.